see. Hi, I think we're live. Hi, everyone. So, welcome. We have people in the room, and now we are inviting people live in, and it's always beautiful to end such a deep meditation and then come into a place where I do want to talk. And I love that Nick asked such an important question tonight, and so I will, because I am going to answer it in our talk tonight. Which is, after we have these experiences and after we have a meditation and stuff comes up that we don't understand, what do I do with this? Where do I go? Do I need to learn something or do something? Give me tools, right? And absolutely, that's my job that's why I call you patient students. That's a student's question. I love it when my patients come out of a meditation or an acupuncture session and become students right away. And they say, what do I need to know so I can have even more of an experience from this? And we're going to talk about that today, because I want to welcome everybody in, and if people are tuning in right now, and if any of you saw, I wanted to talk about something. I have a saying, I'm becoming a supernatural human being. And we have relegated these terms, supernatural and superhuman, to these mythological creatures, right? We go and watch movies about them now. To the point where and I think some of us relate to these different superheroes, but mostly we think, oh, that's an unattainable, made-up thing. But what's a superhuman is just someone who has become exceptionally human. The most human. They're superhuman. They're the optimum of what we were built to be. They're not human. They're just really super at being human. And then the word supernatural. I just love that word too. It means you're really natural. You're supernatural. You have gotten really connected to what is natural. And from that place, we have amazing powers, because there is nothing more powerful than nature. And what in our world, in our culture, in our society is feeding that? How much of the way you were born, how much of the way you were educated, I was educated, how much the way our family did life, each one of us different stories, and some of us maybe more than others, but we literally live in a time where we are disconnected from nature from birth. We're not born out in nature, and how are we addressing most of everything from our careers to how we solve problems to how we are evolving? A lot of things now are stepping further and further away from nature. And in a way, we have done some amazing things in those pursuits. Human beings have created some really cool stuff that no other species on this planet has in our evolution. And that's amazing, and that's cool, and there's a place for that. However, it has come at a great cost of us disconnecting from nature. And we will never become a supernatural human being without figuring out how to reconnect in those ways. And that is really hard, if not almost impossible now in our world. How do I pay my bills? I can't go just out to live in the woods. It's illegal to go out and live in the woods, right? I mean, I have to own land to go out and live in the woods. I have to build a house. I have to all these things make it really hard for us to live in nature. So I'm already way off my script, but basically I grew up with a lot of health issues. I explored a lot of ways to deal with those health issues. Ultimately, after several decades of exploring and traveling literally all over the world, and mostly to some of the places where there were the most progressive healthcare practitioners and schools, you know, I fixed most of my stuff, but it took a long time and a lot of trial and error and a lot of good, well-intentioned MDs and osteopaths and physical therapists and naturopaths and chiropractors and Ayurvedic practitioners and homeopaths and Chinese medicine, and you know, I've become an Oriental medical doctor, but I can't say that even just Oriental medicine alone cured everything of mine. I tried everything. Out of all the things I've done, nothing has had a more positive impact on my health and my life than the efforts I have made to live connected to conscious communities, teachers, and practitioners that are all also dedicated to figuring this stuff out. So I've built my life around that now, around the individuals I have met, the groups that I have become a part of, the communities that I'm helping to build, that I've stepped into, that other people spent decades building, and that I'm still working with. And to some extent, if you're in here, you're doing that too. If you're out there, you're doing that too. Which is really why I'm here right now and what I wanted to talk about. In my journey as a student and teacher over decades, I've seen miracles. How many of you have seen someone have a truly miraculous healing experience? And so I can't count now how many people I've seen terminally ill. This is one thing I will right away say I love Western modern medicine for: emergency trauma. Anybody who is an EMT has seen miracles. Okay, the trickier miracles are the double butterfly glioblastoma brain tumors that are incurable, the schizophrenia, addiction, chronic autoimmune issues, these trickier puzzles in our healthcare. And in that regard, I am so blessed that I cannot any longer count how many people I've seen who modern science said, no known cure, we can't even tell you what caused it, and we don't have a lot to help you with. We have some palliative care. We can try and take away the pain. Often, unfortunately, that creates pain med addictions, which are now running rampant in our culture, because we haven't figured it all out. And I have seen now medical systems that have figured these crazy cool puzzles out. I've seen people come out of the most horrific situations. The thing that they all had in common is that they were deeply connected to a strong community and to nature. That's what I can tell you. I don't care if I'm talking about schizophrenia, terminal cancers, bodies shattered beyond repair, broken bones everywhere after a horrible accident. I have watched miracle healings, and that's the one thing I can tell you they all had in common. Good community and nature time. Gosh, it seems like such a simple recipe for success, right? If that's all it takes, and then of course all the other stuff, right? All the good foods and good doctors and all of that. But why, if that's all it takes, are so many of us still struggling with so many health issues? Anxiety, depression, addictions, allergies. With all the modern technology and decades of groundbreaking science, why aren't we all superhuman? And how about, why aren't we all just simply healthy? So what did I start with? What's the answer? Is it the technologies that are going to get us there? They're amazing. But what's missing? That simple recipe. We send people off after the doctor and they're back at it on their own in the world, right? You go home and everybody, we're all kind of just going at it on our own in our individual healing journeys. Why are there more people suffering on this planet right now than ever before in history? We are literally full of dis-ease, right here in the richest nation in the world. Even people who have the resources to get all their basic needs met, wealthy people, are struggling with major health issues. Think about that. People who have the best insurance are still out there on how many medications, struggling with depression and anxiety and addiction and chronic inflammation in their bodies, who are dying of cancers in their 40s and 50s. These are the people with all the resources in the world. So then we think about most of us who are struggling with these health issues and even limited resources. So I'm asking a complex question right now in a way, right? How do we solve this problem? But I go back to that there really is a missing link that makes this a pretty easy problem to solve in an ideal world. The solutions are what my whole life is now focused on, and what classical medical systems are focused on. And again, the people I've seen with these miraculous healings have all had a lot of integration in their healthcare, but those classical medical systems were part of their path. And so that's what I wanted to talk about, how we can work towards becoming supernatural humans being. And it's not human beings, it's humans being. Because tonight before this talk, you guys came into a classroom, not you guys, but the people sitting around me, to stop doing for an hour and to be. And, you know, John Lennon's coming to mind right now. I want to start singing, let it be, let it be. But really, the pace of our culture has made being really hard. We live in a culture of doing, productivity. And it's like, again, I'm not saying just like jump out of that, because it's almost impossible to pay the bills and be. We have to do all the time. So let's talk about that culture for a minute and human nature, because there's really a gap now in what our primordial human nature drives us to do. We have these naturally innate systems built into us that are spontaneous phenomena. I mean, hunger, sexual desire, procreation, even to some extent power and social status. I mean, even in the animal kingdom, you see these playing out, where these are our innate drivers, fundamental, primordial ways of being in a physical body and living on the planet. And we all inherited innate wisdom for how to exist in nature. That's why whales and turtles and butterflies can navigate from birth thousands of miles. You know the stories about animals that do amazing things and navigate, and how do they survive? How do those little baby turtles make it? Know where to go to the ocean and then swim thousands of miles and live hundreds of years. This innate wisdom that drives. We have that. From birth, we have these innate things. They're built into us. However, over time, cultural conditions begin to become ever more increasingly technologically driven rather than naturally driven. And our species, more than any other, I mean, certainly other species are now being forced to try and keep up with our technological influences. They're trying to figure out how to cross roads now and survive. our cars and our transportation, and birds with windmills and airplanes. But humans, we're completely dependent on these technological systems that we've developed. We have really lost our ability to even remember, even believe. Most humans don't even believe that we have these innate abilities to navigate and to survive in nature. And that's what we were built to do. But now, what are we doing? With all of our energy, with all of our power, with all of our mental faculties and physical faculties, we're out there running around in gerbil wheels to pay the bills, to pay the mortgage, to do a job, to turn on the lights, to live in this technologically constructed world. And we have lost our even remembrance, let alone our ability to live from these primordial natural instincts. So have we evolved? I mean, we've done some cool stuff. We're an apex predator. You look at this planet and humans are the bomb on a lot of levels. However, a whale can travel 6,000 miles while pregnant, not eat, give birth, and take care of its baby while it swims 6,000 miles back to where it came from. And they live long lives. I mean, are we more evolved than that species? It's an interesting thing. Most of us at 12 years old, or much less 18, much less 30 years old. I mean, now we have reality shows called Survivor. So I guess a few people are starting to wonder if we could go at it on our own in nature. But we literally think of that as like, wow, those people are going to like survive in nature? So shocking. So according to the classical texts that my practices are rooted in, and I brought a few I was going to read from, but I might not translate 3,000-year-old classical Chinese text for you, but basically, one of my favorite texts, the Huang Di Ne Jing, is a conversation transcribed over 3,000 years ago between an emperor and a shaman, if you will, a wise man. And the emperor is asking questions to Huang Di, to the wise man, and saying, his main question is, hey man, I have this kingdom and all these people, and I want everybody to flourish and be happy and healthy, but why are we dying in our 60s and 70s and 80s when our ancestors lived to over 100 years old? And this is written 3,000 years ago. They're talking, and we have found the remains. Science has now proven this. There were human beings living to over 100 years, thousands of years ago. So have we evolved? Humans aren't living to 200 or 300 years old. We're still at max living to about 100 years. That's a rare, right, in our culture. Another fun fact, so I can, we have these old texts that talk about this. The new science is this really cool, one new science is called the Blue Zone Project. I've talked about it before. But they went around the world and found the communities that do have people living as centurions, the most people in a village living to over 100 years old. Do you think that those places are the places that have a ton of technology?
They're connected to nature.
Are they towns where everybody's got great insurance and lots of cell phones and on their computers all the time? No. Every single culture they found, and they found them in Japan, they found them in Greece, they found them in Russia, they found them in Costa Rica, they found them in they weren't in all the same climates, right? They were different climates, different places in the world, very different diets. Some of them drank alcohol every day, some of them did not. There were all sorts of differences, but one thing I can tell you is every one of them were people who were living at a pace that was more natural. And they had tight-knit communities. No one was going at it on their own that are living in these places now. And these texts from 3,000 years ago say the same thing. You live in balance with nature, and you cultivate yourself and work with other people who are cultivating themselves, and don't get too distracted. Don't overwork, don't overindulge. live in balance with nature, and live in a community that's doing that too. And that's what I've observed in my practice. That's what I observed in myself. That's how I healed all of my chronic major issues. Is I did have to leave West Virginia to do it. I could not find a community here, and I was addicted to processed foods and sugars and Coca-Cola, and I had chronic inflammation, and my bones were all twisted, and my family loved me and wanted to give me the best health care possible, my friends, but it just wasn't happening here. So I went away and I found it, and I went to places like Costa Rica and Hawaii and places in California, and I found amazing teachers, and then up to Oregon, and ended up in a naturopathic medical school and fell in love with Oriental medicine because it is the oldest, one of, if not the oldest, still alive, whole, fully integrated medical systems that practiced what I'm now preaching for thousands of years, and it's worked. And you can see it over history in its classical expression, and now in our world now, where my observations are. And so now I'm back here in West Virginia, and there's a handful of other people who've come and gone and are back here in West Virginia, and we're coming together, and I hope that part of why I'm here is to get to be here for people like there weren't people here for me when I was younger. So society most of us live in now is really quite intense. I'm with you guys. I have not figured all of this out. I'm still on my own version of the gerbil wheel, trying to figure out things too. Even though I think I figured it out. I think I have the solution. I'm sitting here telling it to you. It's easy to say. How do we walk out of these classes and make it happen? What do we do between now and next week? So what I first just acknowledge is that we are where we are. And if you're watching this and you have figured it out, and you've got a community that's all dialed in and you're sustaining, please let us know. I would love to, I want to learn. I've been a part of these communities, and I aspire to get to know more of them and to create more of them. But for right now, I want to honor that most of us are not in those communities. Most of us sitting here are not in those communities, and we are living in a culture that is really quite intense. We are continually advertised to and manipulated. Our desires are constantly being overstimulated for substances and sex and power. Our fears are constantly being stoked. It is Facebook, it is the news, it is politicians, it is even most of our religions. Between the marketing and the desire to create us all as unconscious consumers, and to keep us in a way locked into a fear-based paradigm where we feel like we never have enough and we need more. This is where most of us are coming and going from. However many yoga classes you take and meditations you do and holistic practitioners you work with, we are all still really engaged in that system, most of us. And it's almost nearly impossible to not be. So what do we do about that? We end up navigating our primal drives amongst these competing external influences, and constantly being manipulated and overstimulated. I check myself multiple times a day with information coming in and how I react to it and get attached to it, or let it work me up or not. Most of us barely connect to nature's rhythms and cycles anymore. When do we have time to do that, and how would that even help us get through our daily lives? If we tried to live with nature's cycles, our worlds are not built to live with nature's cycles. So how do we do that? Even those of us who feel this and feel a deep calling to do something about it have a difficult time figuring out how to navigate this in our lives and still get our bills paid. So society's system is set up to make it nearly impossible to function and thrive in this society and live naturally paced lives. Managing all the stimulations and expectations to a degree where we can find some balanced and indeed find ourselves, our truth that underlies all this frenetic distraction. Like Nick said tonight, he got guided, we did an internal guided meditation, and he was connecting to parts of himself he'd never even really contemplated being connected to. We are disconnected from ourselves at basic levels. We don't spend time just going in and even feeling these parts of our being, right? But we're sitting here struggling with asthma, chronic inflammation, indigestive problems, but we're not connected to these parts of our body. It's hard. It's hard to live the lives we're living and take the time to get connected. Managing all the stimulations and expectations to a degree where we can find some balance is really hard. And again, alone, it is impossible. Which is why we're sitting here right? And I do think many of us know these solutions. I do not feel like I'm saying something that, whether unconsciously or many of us consciously have become aware of. We need to figure out how to do more for ourselves and for each other in this world. But how do we do it? We know this in our heads, and then we just get back on our gerbil wheels, just trying to survive and pay this month's bills. What we need to combat all that's coming at us: very powerful practices like the ones we did tonight and that many of you are out there doing in your communities. These philosophies that have survived for thousands of years that are beautiful and simple, yet truly understanding them, truly rewiring our brains to think in different ways, much less live in different ways. It takes time. It takes studying these different ways because they are not taught to us as kids. And most importantly, finding communities that are really dedicated to this. And as much of our time as we can, while we're going back out into our normal lives, cultivating those communities and supporting each other in those communities so we can start solving these problems together on grassroots levels. That's how it's going to happen. Many of us are very engaged right now in national politics, and I appreciate that. And we need that, but so much energy needs to be put into grassroots community. More than ever because of our national political situation. Right? So focus what you want on national politics, but if you are not looking in your grassroots community for the people who you are literally going to figure out how to solve the problem so you can spend more time doing things to get back into a natural cycle and figure out how to pay the bills while we do it together, it's not going to happen. It doesn't matter who's president. I mean, I don't want to say that, freak everybody out. But to some extent, if we're not doing that in our local communities, the national stuff, it doesn't matter. Microcosm, macrocosm, and mostly we need to work not only on ourselves as individuals, but just with the people who are showing up around us. I love that Einstein said, reality is merely an illusion, albeit a very persistent one. And that's a powerful statement, because whatever our reality is right now, and it's pretty hard to get out of seeing the world this way and that I just have to suck it up and deal with this world as it is an illusion. We can become supernatural humans being. It's completely possible in our lifetime right now, but it does take us really committing to these practices, really understanding these philosophies that weren't taught to us, and really figuring out our core communities and our tribes so we can become sustainable and have a whole different reality. So the conflict that we are dealing with in our internal world and this external world that we've become super dependent on is what creates some of the most common diseases of our times, especially for our children, It's happening more and more. There are more sick children now than there have ever been in any other time in history. Our kids are sensitive, and they are being unavoidably inundated with all these stimulations. And to some extent, it's affecting the older generations, but you really see it when you look at kids. And if you are a teacher or and working in pediatrics in any way, and you've been doing that for more than 10 or 15 years, you've seen this increase. We are wired by nature to live in nature. We have these natural instincts, but right from the get-go, we've already talked about we're removed from that. So our world becomes ever more processed and synthetic and driven by forces that move at inhuman paces. What happens to any living thing attempting to live at the pace our natural systems we were not designed to live at this pace. So what would happen to any system trying to keep up with this frenetic world? How can we even know what our optimum capacities are if we're unable to tap into those rhythms and live from that place? Imagine that place today that we found in meditation before this talk. If you felt those pulses in these different centers in your body, and if you could spend more time in that rhythm, feeling the blood moving through your body, feeling your heartbeat, directing your attention into these spaces, and being able to live from that kind of space. But we're going to walk out of here and get in cars and drive 50 miles an hour down a highway and get to sleep so we can get up and work for 40 hours for the next week. We have to. But this is what happens when that happens. Let's look at what I call our internal security system, our immune system. How many people have allergies? Much less other autoimmune issues. Our security systems are short-circuiting in their attempts to deal with the assaults of the excess external and often toxic stimulators we are inundated by. I know you know what I mean if you've got allergies. Much less asthma, much less the diseases that make our bodies literally tremor and shake: epilepsy, Parkinson's, Tourette's. Diseases that make our tissues and organs chronically inflamed: diabetes. How many people have had to have their gallbladders removed? Chronic inflammation, arthritis. All of these symptoms are us. These things that are happening are our bodies screaming out for us to listen to them. Like I asked everybody in class tonight to listen to your bodies. Let your body talk to you. And they are talking to us. Ideally, they just have to whisper things. But that's not happening anymore. Our kids' bodies are screaming for us to listen, much less our own bodies. Another common pathological response to our attempts to cope with the unnatural pace and ways of life in our society is addictions, using substances and activities to self-medicate, to numb and to distract us from the daunting task of figuring out how to exist, much less feel good and safe in this insane world. I mean, it literally, to say that it's daunting and to say that this world is insane is an understatement. It is, I get it. I've done it too. It is much easier to just numb and dumb ourselves out. Most of us know these diseases are culturally induced, but what doesn't make them any easier to navigate? It doesn't make it, just because we get it, right? The world's insane. But what else can we do if we want to heal and believe that a healthier life is possible? So AA, yoga, good churches, spiritual communities, we have groups to go to, we have support, right? A lot of these focus on the individual steps we each need to take to lift ourselves out of our circumstances. And of course, we all need to take our own steps every day and take responsibility for our own personal healing. However, that we're limited in how much we can heal and how much we're doing as an individual, even when we work within communities of individuals who are all committed to doing our work. To some basic level, we come into these groups and these things, and then we still go back out on our own in the world. So the difference between me moving into my yoga teacher's ashram and living full time, that almost doesn't exist in this world. An opportunity to live 24 hours a day, 7 days a week with people who they go back out into the world too and live in it, but we have more constant container of support. It's almost impossible to find that and have that in our culture. But when we begin to acknowledge that these diseases are culturally induced, we also realize that the cure is cultural as well. And one key is to make different choices in what cultural systems we immerse ourselves in, and to whatever extent we can, to create communities and cultures for ourselves and for our kids to come to more often, and maybe even all the time, to figure out how to live in ways where it's not just an hour in church on Sunday and Wednesday night yoga. You know, how do we make a more cohesive connection of a place for us to come to all the time? And that's what I'm trying to do here as much as I can. So I was saying that it's kind of like relapsing. We come into these things, we get all juiced up, we hear it, we have these aha moments, and then we go out and fall off the wagon and slip back into our worlds and then come back in. But to answer Nick's question about what do I do in between classes, right, is we have to commit to regular time, to solid practices. We have to commit to working with teachers, not just here and there or once or twice. We got to stick with a system to learn it. If we just dabble around, that's shallow. That's us learning at a shallow level. We'll learn little things here and there. But to really get it, and to really wake ourselves up, and to really figure things out together of a different way to live and sustain, we have to get committed. We have to hold on to what we get in these environments and then figure out how to carry them with us when we go back into that frenetic world, our normal worlds. And over time, hopefully, we will find ways to reduce our dependency on those systems to that frenetic reality and live in a more natural way within our consciously cultivated communities. So we're establishing contact here. We're exercising our energetic mechanisms. For those of you who didn't get to join us for class before this talk tonight, whatever classes you're doing out there, I know everybody has their practices where we're doing this to help us return to a more natural pace and rhythm, at least feel that in our bodies. So as we go out into the world, we can strengthen this and hopefully tap into that place. As the frenetic world spins around us, we have a stronger center to come back to and try and stay in this place. It's hard, but we can do it. And over time, if we spend this time in conscious communities driven by a desire to reconnect us with nature, our nature, human nature, divine nature, we begin to integrate these ways into our lives. We begin to figure out how to live from a different place, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, physically, financially. And we become stronger individuals with a stronger community grounded in these more natural rhythms and ways. This is when our jobs and our foods and our education and our healthcare systems can experience radical changes that are so urgently needed right now. And whatever your career, whatever your profession, all of us are, I think, out there in the world, if we've got kids, we're wanting this, we're craving it. We have to get committed to our practices and our communities that are doing these practices if we ever want to make a big change. There's no other way. This is not a chicken and egg conundrum. right? This is not sit around and wait for the right president and then it'll all get better in our local communities, in our individual lives. We have to start in our local communities. We have to start with our practices and the people that we are living around every day to figure out how to do things differently. So, sustainable ecosystems, right? Unwinding our tensions. Beginning to feel at ease rather than diseased. And figuring out how to take that out into the world. And then change our immediate environments to have more ease than dis-ease. This is the path. This is the way. This is the Tao. Right? This is why we named our organization the Lotus Way. This is the Lotus Way. This is what I'm doing here. This is what I'm doing every time I work with a patient and student, every time I teach a class, every time, at 24/7 now in my life, I hope. I get distracted too. And I am still trying to figure out how to pay my bills. And actually it's harder now because I used to be so good at making money. I was a really good gerbil. I could rock that gerbil wheel. I was able to churn out stuff. And when I decided to go on this path and heal myself, and in order to do that, I had to find my way back to these natural rhythms because my body was so chronically inflamed and overloaded with toxins. I had to slow down. I had to change things. And then, I find my way into these philosophies and practices and come back out into the world and am still trying to figure that out. But I'm committed. And I'm healthier than I've ever been before in my life. And even though I've not, maybe for me personally, figured out that my challenge is figuring out the money component, it's working. I'm fine. I'm not complaining. I'm much better now than when I used to make a ton of money, have 4 houses, and was traveling all over the world, which was really cool, and I loved it. But I'm much happier and healthier now. And building these systems up with each other. And enough of us taking these braver leaps to step out of those systems enough to build these other systems. So that's what I'm doing with every moment of my life. And we are all beginners. We are all beginners on our next steps. Everybody's next step is a first step. My next step I have never taken. So I'm a beginner. And in that sense, coming together in communities and having compassion for wherever anybody is. And if you think people are further along than you, or you're further along, and it doesn't, everybody's a beginner. And so these kind of communities are definitely for people of all levels. And I want to say that as we had someone tonight asking, I've never done a practice with chakras. I've never accessed these parts of my body. Great. That's your next step. Whatever mine is, we can do them together. And if we do it with sincerity, if we make these practices and teachers and communities our priority, it is hard. So many other things will make us think they need to be our priority. But if we stop going at it on our own with casual connections to our practices and our teachers and each other, if we take it more seriously and become more sincere in it, that's when we start stepping from human to superhuman. From enjoying nature to experiencing the supernatural ways that are available to every one of us, if we make connecting to them and living in them our priority. And we can even see that in our the Avengers. I mean, they're not alone. Even the superheroes all end up seeking each other out, or they're screwed. So every time I have one of these classes, I feel like new superheroes crawl out of the woodwork and end up in my classroom. I see that light in everybody. And then, to whatever extent, we go back into our worlds and get distracted and on our gerbil wheels. But I'm out here and I've got my teachers, I've got superhumans in my life. Part of me wonders why I'm not living with him in a community in Oregon right now, but this other part of me follow my heart and believe that there's a place. And those of you out there who know, I have tribes in different places I'm connected to. I'm looking for the people who want to be superhuman with me. And I don't care what step you're on of that path of becoming superhuman and how much kryptonite you are currently carrying around with you. The cool part is to choose to be a community to do the work together. Then whatever level you're at, we're good to go. We just need enough people who really commit to it. And that's why I not only wanted to work with the people who are laying in this room, I want to open this up for anybody who's wherever they are. Because this web needs to get wove as big as we can, and we all need to find people in any of the places we can to do this work with. So to some extent, that I've experienced this to great degrees in my life. To other levels, I have many, many more steps to take myself, and I deeply wish to take them. I want to get more connected to my practices, more sincerely devoted to my teachers, and more ingrained in my communities that are committed to this work. That is my intention, my focus, and my whole path is that. And I'm finding more flow with that and with these conscious communities, so I can take more steps to grow and become superhuman. And so in this regard, and let me see if I had anything else really big to say to you guys, in that regard, the Lotus Way is officially, as of last night, elected our board of directors, and we're launching a lot of our programs in Morgantown and beyond, but in West Virginia to a great extent. I didn't print out my last page, so I'm not supposed to talk to you about that. But we're here, and we're doing things online, and I'm going to be traveling between West Virginia and Colorado and California and Oregon, and hopefully once a year a small group of us are going to go to Hawaii, so we can talk to the whales and figure out how they do all those magic things that they do. They've been some of my greatest teachers. So, and I want to connect my communities. I want to be able to share the gift of my teachers and my physicians and my tribes, and to some extent allow these energies to start connecting us into a stronger community and build what we can here in West Virginia, for sure. So if you have not checked out the Lotus Way page, we have a lot of our curriculums up now. We're starting a 200-hour teacher training. Erica Lawrenson is doing Yogasana yoga teacher training. We're going to do our 800-hour yoga therapy training with Ayurveda yoga therapy and other Asian medicines. And that program is going to get integrated into the practices of MDs and osteopaths and occupational therapists and massage therapists and yoga teachers and school teachers and social workers and psychotherapists. So we're really hoping to make these programs tools for hairdressers, for anybody who wants to integrate these philosophies and practices into that frenetic world that we are going to work on making less frenetic. Right? So most of our curriculums are standalone. You can become a yoga teacher, you can become a yoga therapist full-time, but we really want to do these trainings in a way that allow people to come in just to learn to embody these practices, and then in whatever ways you can take them out into the world. So we're trying to structure all of our curriculums and all our education and all of our services in ways that people with full-time jobs can participate, that people wherever you live can participate, and you'll see that rolling out. Another area that we're really working on, we're going to work with addiction and trauma communities, because not only in West Virginia but in the world, addiction and trauma are so almost every one of us is struggling with one or both of those things. And so there's a whole page on our website now for the services that I'm going to start offering, and I'm going to start training people to support people in those communities. And to whatever extent all of you want to come and go from this part of the gorgeous cosmic web that's weaved. I am out there when I am not with my patients and students, and when I am not doing these things, I'm with my teachers and my physicians, and I am so grateful to so many of them for doing similar things like what I'm doing right now. So even while I'm here in West Virginia, I can be really connected to them. And anybody who wants to get dialed in with any of my teachers, please let me know. I'm happy to connect you in with them as well. I feel very humble in my attempts to navigate the World Wide Web and do these things compared to what a lot of them are doing. So thank you all for joining us. Thank you all for who came in tonight for class. We will be here again next Wednesday. Mondays, I'm doing a class at Nico's Salon now. It's an open community acupuncture clinic. It's going to be really sweet. And the rest of the week I'm available online or in person. So just let me know how I can serve you. And let's finish setting up. If you're at home, whatever you're doing, thank you for sticking in with my long-winded talk. And let's take a moment to really tap into this awareness and this belief that we have the innate wisdom and ability to be completely, unbelievably, superly, naturally humans being. Just really take that in. Feel your body in its highest, strongest vibration right now. And just take a few breaths into that awareness. Whatever part of you is doubting, take a deep breath into that part of you. Fill it. Let it expand. Let the doubt go. Let your spine be straight. Lift your head up. Feel yourself root into the earth. Feel your spine lifting from that rooted, grounded place all the way up to your crown chakra. And even beyond that, keep lifting while you're grounding. Open your chest and heart. And let the breath move through your whole body. We are supernatural humans. We are being supernatural humans. We are supernatural humans being. Breathe through your whole body. Again, root yourself into the earth and lift your spine. Feel your spine lift, and expand. Feel the breath move through your whole body. And become aware of your breath. Inhaling, pausing, exhaling. And let yourself pause at the bottom of your inhale and let the breath stay in your body for a few seconds and expand. Let it expand until you need to exhale. And then do that a few times. Hands to the heart in prayer. Thank yourself for showing up today. Thank all your teachers. Stay in a place of gratitude. And as we leave our practice tonight, remember to come back to this place, and please remember that you are stronger than you know and more capable than maybe anybody has ever told you. That I believe in you and that I'm here to support you and that you can become super natural, superhuman. You are wired for it. Thank you, everybody. Bye. How do I stop this?